get the question first or go while you're asking?
No, yeah, you gotta multitask, bro. That's the point of this. This is my concept.
All right.
Because life isn't one-dimensional. Okay, so we talked about the beautiful life lessons of your story of creation as a young man and understanding non-duality. So what are obstacles that you faced as a First Nations man, as a child and now? Okay, so the challenges you faced.
Yes. Challenges, barriers. So I think it's hard. It's hard because it's different for all Indigenous people. The challenges that I faced would be different than the challenges that other Indigenous people that who lived on reserve or who lived off reserve their whole lives, who might have been more in the city rather than rural. But for me, I think growing up, there's always a challenge in being able to connect with people on a level of same understanding. So I mentioned earlier that I did feel like I belonged. But I had also mentioned that people grew up with a different story than I did. And I had been under the impression that that everybody had sort of the same understanding of life that I did. But I think with my upbringing, I was a lot more conscious of the ways that we act and how what we do affects not only the people around us, but the environment around us as well, the space around us. And I really understood that our energy that we produce through our feelings and our emotions affected people as well. So I think that I had a deeper understanding of that spiritual connection than other people. So being able to connect with people on that deeper level, where it wasn't about materialistic objects, or it wasn't about, when we talked about the future, it wasn't about making money or what we were going to do with our like jobs or things like that. But instead, finding people I could talk to about, the environment or caring and compassion and the state of where we are mentally and physically, and I think living in the now.
Wow.
So I think that finding people that I could connect with in that way was probably one of the largest barriers I found growing up.
Well, absolutely, because nobody else spoke that language.
Exactly.
Well, generally.
Yeah, and
I don't want to say nobody.
Yeah, and I think I've always had a really good relationship with people who are older than I am, and not just a couple of years, but like significantly, like 10 plus years. I always enjoyed spending time with my elders and people people who have more life experience than me, because I think that's worth so much. And I think that I've always related with them differently and on a deeper level than I have.
Did you feel safe with them?
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a cloak of safety and warmth?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a big part of it, is that they understand where I'm coming from. They've lived through it before.
They lived your pain and your suffering.
Exactly. So they understand. And yeah, I think that understanding between us creates, like you said, that feeling of safety and that cloak of warmth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'll just you can talk to people.
Thank you. So from that, the biggest obstacle was you sometimes feeling, I feel, then on the outside, because you may have found it hard to relate with other, maybe children from urban centers, materialism, even placement of status within sports teams.
Yeah.
So you're probably really empathetic, and you're like, well, this is actually hurtful to talk. And move on. So you probably is that where you had a hard time?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
And then just that sense of knowing that I do belong, but then as well feeling like
How do we connect?
Yeah, exactly. Like I do belong here, and I want to be here in this community and with these people. But how can we see eye to eye on things? How can we move in the same direction to sort of align our thoughts and align the way that we feel and think?
Yeah, and share the way we feel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's sharing.
Sharing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Question 2, I think, beautifully answered.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I think that's
cool.
That's it.
Let's go up to 155. We'll throw a 10 on each side.
Yep.
But it'll be actually a little bit more because the Buffalo bar is 55.
All right.
But that's okay. Okay, so this one's really intense for Elias because how do you feel As an Aboriginal man, do you feel your ancestral's pain, and how do you deal with that pain that you do feel, or if you don't feel, how do you deal with the frustrations that you see taking place for Aboriginals? Beautiful reps.
You don't want them to know that you use a Monster Energy computer?
No, I got a nice tripod. It's worth thousands of dollars.
The best microphone.
The best
Okay.
microphone.
You guys should see this setup.
That's right. It's the most professional.
Insulated, soundproof.
Oh, and then, man, we got the lighting.
Yes.
There's no that sound. There's no ambient sound coming in. No, not at all. Okay, so our question to you. We're not going to get a sweat on, but that's okay because this storytelling is more important.
Yep.
Is how you deal with that ancestral pain, and do you feel it?
Yeah. So, yes, I think that I'm not sure if it would be the pain, but it's something, you know, understanding and knowing the past of Canada and the present still, and where we are with the relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. So I think it's a mixture of the pain and suffering that my ancestors and even my grandparents, my parents have felt because of the system of colonialism. But then as well the pain that not only am I feeling today in the ways that the Indigenous people are being treated and are the way that we're being respected, but then the way that other people are still being treated, whether it's Indigenous or non-Indigenous people. So seeing that the system of colonialism it still has a lot to improve on. The government that we have in place is still something that needs work and needs the input from Indigenous leaders and Indigenous peoples in the community and in the country.
Wow. Yeah. Well said.
So I think with that and with dealing with that, it's important to first be able to recognize it, understand where that feeling is coming from, because if you don't, it'll represent itself in that anger, hopelessness, a feeling of hatred and frustration towards other people and yourself. And it's important to be able to recognize where that feeling is coming from. So being able to put something like that's the first step is, you know, saying, well, you know what, I am angry, but what am I angry at? Because then once you start to break it down, well, the residential schools, for example, they closed in 1997. That was the year that I was born.
Wow, 1997.
Yeah. So like they were present. They're relevant.
Very relevant.
So first being able to identify, well, that's one of the things I'm angry at. It's not that I'm angry at towards certain people. It's that of them. It's that children were taken away from their families and stripped from them and put into this place where they were told they couldn't speak their language, they had to dress a certain way. So being able to identify that makes me angry. So that way I'm not pushing my anger or things towards irrelevant places, and it doesn't affect other parts of my life. And then from there, being able to feel like you understand what it was that happened, because I think being able to, and that part hurts, being able to understand what, for example, the residential schools were about, going in and figuring out why they happened, who was involved in having them happen, and then everything that happened inside, because you need to really be able to understand that before we can move forward and say, how can we heal from this? We have to understand the trauma first.
Feel it, understand it. Yeah.
And then from there, we can take action and do something about it because we have a deeper understanding. We know why we feel the way that we do, and then we can start to deal with it. And there are a couple ways to deal with it. Of course, we've seen it, and it's a huge stereotype that Native people are drug addicts and alcoholics, and so. Yes, there has been a problem with drugs and alcohol in the Indigenous community, but that's just a way of coping, right? And it's not a healthy way of coping, but when you go through all of these traumas and it's been your entire community and you don't have people to tell you, to guide you anymore, to be able to explain to you what a healthy way of coping with
Because
this
the
is.
elders have been so hurt.
Exactly. So they go and they turn to drugs and alcohol because it numbs the pain. It doesn't fix
Yeah,
it,
it doesn't
but they
fix
don't
it.
feel it anymore. They don't feel anything. That becomes the problem, right?
Yeah.
So
You can't suppress just one emotion.
exactly,
They all do.
exactly. So that's one way I was starting to cope. But then there are healthier ways. There are talking to people. I think that I talked about that idea of connectivity and community, and this is why we have that. This is why those places and things are so important to have. So that way, when you have these feelings and these things do come up, because people aren't perfect. We're not all happy. We have these feelings of anger and hopelessness. We have to be able to deal with it and talk to people, so that way they can guide us. And I talked about speaking with elders and people who are older than me, because when I tell them my problems, they've experienced them and they've found a way through it, and they've found the guidance that they've needed, and they're able to provide it to me. So being able to reach out and find help, and then being able to take it a step further and start doing something about it, because now you feel it from that, and you feel it from those experiences, and you move forward in a way that allows you to have a voice and speak out against those things and talk to other people about it and talk about those things that are hard to talk about because you're not afraid.
Wow.
So I think it is a multi-step process to being able to really feel it, and we have to face them with each stage of life that we're in.
That's right.
Because you can't just tell a 6-year-old, well, people got sent to residential school and they were children your age, and they were raped and they were beaten, they were malnourished, and they were slaughtered and killed. You can't tell it to them, so you have to build it in, right? So they hear about residential schools and they learn it, but I think exactly. So being able to understand that we're all in different stages of life, regardless of our age.
Regardless, because it's our spirit and our capacity to take on certain obstacles.
Yeah, so it's important that when we do start to, for me, I know this for sure, is that when I find out something, and that the residential schools, for example, when I knew, like I've known about them my whole life, and probably around high school, was grade 8, grade 7, was when I started to hear about the atrocities that would happen. And I think I tried, being myself, to take on more than I was spiritually ready for. And it did get, it started to weigh on me, and I was trying to do too much for what I was capable of. So I had to learn to slow down and to learn how to heal from things, and be able to take on the challenge from a good place instead of a place of anger. And, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I feel like that was at the period, because that was pretty profound and pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think I've answered it as
Yeah.
as I could have.
Again, because I like to AAR and share. Solution, which I think is easy, but I think politicians forgot they're simply a vessel for the people, would ensure that why are there not banned seats just in the House? Why aren't they there? And same with so I can relate with you on the military side. There should be a seat for a general and export to sit in the House as well, because they're representing a different part of the population that can't even vote, or can't even have a political opinion. We can vote, but we can't have an opinion. When we're serving, when we're not serving, we can have an opinion, which is cool. Then next, I got from that, which I relate, is the overwhelming feeling of that my mother being Jewish and my father with the Meidi. I have a lot of ancestral pain. I had cousins that died in the Holocaust, great cousins, and I felt that anger, and I felt that, for me, why did the Jews allow the Germans to hurt them? Why did the Jews allow their children to be taken?
Why didn't they fight back?
Why didn't they fight back? Yeah, why didn't you charge them immediately when you were healthy? You had the chance to take that weapon, brew up the Germans, and own that. So I relate with you in that pain, and then taking too much on, and then the whole world on those shoulders, like we said, even without having spirituality,
Yep.
and having your version of God, creation, universe, nature, and all that weights on you, cripples you. So for a young man, that must have been really hard for you, because I'm sure that was really, because it's pertinent. It's in Canada, residential. For me, my two examples were one, I didn't even know my heritage, and another one, my heritage suffered in Europe, so I didn't have the connection with the land and the blood in the land. So for you, the blood's right there. So thank you for sharing that. That was probably really tough. Is that, did we relate? Did I get your sentiment?
I think so. Yeah.
Cool. And then your last point was kind of finishing off on that. It's just knowing where you are spiritually and mentally to process this, to make sure that you can heal and you can compassionately help others deal with their pain at their level. You can't force them to come to you. So you have to know how to speak the same language.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. So question number, is that 3 or 4?
3, I think.
3, that was 3. I think has been beautifully said. Elias, thank you. And now we're going to our 4th set of bench press.